Professor Herman Manyora joins us this particular morning, and the first question that we're going to ask him is has ODM become a house of cards, Professor? Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Karibu tena sana.
Asante.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Huu mwaka umetutoroka kwa nini bwana?
Iko sawa.
Ama kuna mtu alikusumbua hapa nje, niambie tu ni deal na yeye.
Naenda kuambia baadaye.
Uko tu sawa ODM, has it become a house of cards?
Well, ODM is just a party doing the sort of things parties do. That's all.
Okay, yeah. Which is politics.
Which is politics.
Yeah.
Which is people talking together, talking at each other, talking with each other. A bit of political fight here and there. That's normal in politics.
Yes.
All political parties. Yeah.
Katibu mkuu anashinda akitukumbusha kwamba yeye ndiye katibu mkuu wa chama.
Edwin Sifuna.
Naam. Sasa it feels like he has to remind us because it seems we are forgetting, or is he reminding someone who seems to be forgetting that he is the SG of ODM party?
I think it's just his style, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know it is really catching, and it is capturing the audience,
right?
Yeah,
and it is working
just
for
like
him.
Higher of Raila Odinga.
Yes,
that is a signal tune.
Yeah. But you know, there's something here that is often lost in our conversations,
which is,
you see, let's start with the figure of 8 million. We are told there were 8 million Kenyans who did not vote. If we look at the stats of our demographics, 70% of our population are youthful. So arguably you could say 70% of that 8 million were probably young people. That is conversationally speaking. They raise the fundamental question in all this discussion, because the change that everyone talks about, those in government and those who want to unseat those in government, everyone talks about the change without specifying what it is they're going to do to bring about the change. But to bring this change, you need people to vote. I do not hear of any conversations. Maybe there are people who are working behind the scenes of how they actually get people, not just the registration of voters I hear of, getting people to register. That one is a conversation. After they've registered, how do you mobilize them to vote?
Okay. Because
if they don't vote, and they don't vote in favor of the position that you stand for, then whatever change you're talking about will not happen. You know, because the change will come about with the leaders who have proposed those changes being elected and being voted in.
Okay.
How do you get these individuals to actually vote?
That is a question for Prof.
You know,
my
friend City thinks people must vote. They don't have to vote. And I don't think the people you are referring to want to vote unless something happens. And that makes the discussion on Sifuna relevant. Unless kuna ile Waswahili wanaita msisimko mpya. Something new, something exciting to capture the imagination of the youth and make them part and parcel of these politics. They are not interested in voting. They don't want to vote. So
what are they interested in?
They just want to see this country change.
And how do they expect it's going to change?
They'll push the change. They'll force it.
They'll force it in the way that they attempted to.
The way it's happening across the world, not in Kenya, not in Tanzania or Uganda or Nepal or Madagascar.
How is it happening?
Or Bangladesh or the UK.
Let me ask you a question, Prof.
This powerful voice, this powerful force, this tsunami of youth is changing the world. They are doing it in their own style.
It is giving the impression it is changing the world. That is
even when America is misbehaving in the Middle East, they just wake up 2-3 days and the United States changes. These are not people, and they are not going to do legacy politics. They don't believe in these legacy politicians and legacy politics. Oh, every 5 years you go and vote the same people, nothing happens, they remain jobless, no change. They have witnessed their father suffering, breaking their backs over the years, retiring into poverty. Their father selling everything to take them to school. They don't have jobs. They are not going to listen to you. They will not be part of this voting. And that's why the conversation around Sifuna is very exciting. If people like Sifuna can bring the young people on board, then the young people will come and vote. But otherwise, the normal politicians, the normal politics, you can wait all you want. They will not be part of it.
There's something you were saying before Prof went on to answer your question.
I was thinking of actually Bangladesh as you were speaking.
And Nepal.
Sheikh Hasina left. And when she left, who filled that gap?
Was it the military?
No. It was not the military.
Mm-hmm.
The change that comes about with hope. It comes with the hope that what the young people were clamoring for, they will actually get. What he's right about is a narrative that captivates the attention and the minds of this group of young people. That one, he is 100% right. There is actually, in my opinion, there is no debate about it. That the so-called legacy politician, by and large, is a despicable animal, is also not very wrong. And that is the reason why you heard the conversation we're having.
Mm-hmm.
One of our guests was representing the legacy politician's perspective, and I'm wondering, I hear what you're saying, but that's what you people say. Where is the conversation that tells you about the so-called Mwananchi, who you're supposed to be, on whose behalf you're supposed to be speaking? Because it's lost. BBI was entrenching the status quo. NADCO was entrenching the status quo. These conversations we're hearing are still entrenching the status quo. So, in that respect, Professor Herman Manyora is absolutely right. My issue here is this. If the Sifunas of this world and the Babus of this world and the other people who've come in can get these young people to vote, then you then ask the next crucial question. What is it that they will do to ensure that these changes that we talk about and we want, how will they be effected?
Mm-hmm.
How? Are they the people to do it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when things are so bad, they call for disruption. Something must break. And your observations are right. Quite often when people are so mad with what's going on in their country, these countries, and they get out of the streets and they chase away regimes, and it's happened everywhere, the Arab Springs and even here Sudan, finally nothing comes out of it. It is disruptive without being organized enough as an organized revolution in the manner of the Russian Revolution, the Cuban Revolution, and so on and so forth. So things are so bad, people are so annoyed, they say anything but this. But what follows after that is rarely useful to anybody. You disrupt order, so that you disrupt peace. A regime goes, the president can go away flying out in a helicopter and so on and so forth, but you have nothing better. But it was sort of necessary. It now takes long for something new to come out of it. But you see, the Sifuna angle is a little different. If they are able to bring the young people to be part and parcel of the conversation of this country, not to vote. Again, there's something wrong about voting. Bring the young people out to vote, you will not bring them to vote. They will not come to vote. The young people will come to be part of the conversation, not to vote. Part of the conversation. That conversation includes voting. They are part of it. And I have a remedy for that. Politicians, especially young politicians, new politicians, if they are able to make it possible for the young people to be part of the process in a very practical way. I've said, for example, political parties should ensure at least 50-60% of MCAs are young people we call Gen Zs and thereabout. Anybody below 35 years. We should have our county assemblies na vijana below 35 years. Our National Assembly, Bunge la Kitaifa, should have people below 45 years, about 40 to 50%. If this is part of the conversation this country is having, is this part of the conversation people like Sifuna bring on board, you can't stop it. Because the young people will effectively be taking over their country. This is their country, but they must take it over in an organized way, in a much more structured way than we have seen the so-called revolutions, including the Arab Spring Revolution, what we've seen in these places across the world. Organized, structured by being part of the conversation.
Prof, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Do you think that if this organization began with an overhaul of political parties,
Yes.
because all these young people come from regions where we have these political parties,
Yes.
let's say they joined these political parties and with their numbers were able to actually get into positions of authority within the parties,
You can't.
why not?
You can't. You
Why
can't
not?
go to Ukambani and disrupt legacy politicians in Wiper and you take over. They can't allow you. You can't take over ODM because you are young, educated with 2 degrees. Nonsense. They will not allow you. It must be deliberate from the politicians. And since these legacy politicians won't see the urgency and they won't do it, that's why I keep going back to Babu Owino. This Babu Owino can come back with the politics that does not put party at the front. Party is nothing. It is a movement. You may just need a name called a party for the purposes of fitting within the constitutional and legal order that is provided for in this country. But it's not a party. You cannot progress the politics of this country using parties.
Parties have a tendency in this country of being the representation of what it is that we shouldn't do.
Correct.
Movements, on the other hand, tend to be amorphous.
Yes.
And without structure.
Yes.
And it makes them dangerous.
True.
Because they start with what you want to do, after the fact is never featured. So you're left in limbo. Political limbo isn't safe, it isn't good, it isn't nice.
It is earlier when I said that you are referring to.
Yes.
But you see, I'm saying people like Babu Owino, Sifuna, under the tutelage and guidance of people like Orengo, will bring the young people into the politics of this country. That is in a structured manner. I have repeated, organized, structured. It will be a system.
Herman,
Not just noise, not just the streets.
Herman,
Yes. Reach them and make them
your
facts.
thinking is structured, your argument is structured.
Yes.
Most of the politicians that represent change and revolution have been people who do not do well with structures. They do well with rhetoric, they do well with agitation, but as for providing the sort of leadership that brings about structural change that then change lives, that hasn't been their forte. Raila is an exception. I'm repeating it. He is actually an exception. What is it about Orengo that brings to mind structure? What is it about Orengo that gives you the impression that beyond the rhetoric and the ideologies that this man has had and his constant push for change, that is a hallmark
I have
of
to
the
repeat.
person?
I have to repeat for C.T. Muga and perhaps anybody else who didn't get it. I am saying sometimes in society,
Yes.
sometimes in a country, things get so bad, something must give way.
Yes.
Look at the recklessness with which our politicians are running this country. From both sides. Look at the plunder and theft. Look at the impunity. Look at the display of wealth. So what I'm saying, as these people go about vomiting on Kenyans' shoes, something must give way. Now, when something is breaking, there are always 2 ways of it. The first way is people just spill into the streets, the Arab Spring. And at the end of it all, in Sudan here you saw, at the end of it all, so what? A government has fallen, the king has left or the queen has left, the president has gone, the prime minister has run out of the country using a helicopter. But what follows isn't anything you can be proud of. It has happened across the world. That's more common these days. But earlier on, we had people taking over government, sometimes even by military force, aforethought. Muammar Gaddafi. They have sat down and looked at Libya and said, "This cannot allow. We cannot allow this." Cuba, Russia, you know, and you can go on and on, including some countries in Latin America. You know, you remember names like Ortega, and, you know, those kind of things in those countries, Venezuela and what, you know, many of those countries. That is very highly revolutionary. An organized revolution with leadership that has a vision for a country, and they have changed those countries.
Yes.
On the other hand, the first one is that people who are just annoyed because things are so bad and they spill into the streets, but they have no plan about what next. The one I'm talking about is in between, because there is the urgency of change. There's the need to change this country called Kenya. That you cannot dispute. Even those people messing this country know. They are quoting, and Obama told us when he came here. Uhuru Kenyatta himself alluded to this, that we are making things so bad that revolution is necessary. But the sort of change I'm talking about is where people like Sifuna, Babu, Owino, and the rest get the young people who would otherwise go to the streets because things are so bad, and they don't believe in this politics of yours. They will not register and they will not vote. So get them now to be part and parcel of the conversation of what is happening in this country.
Okay.
And initiate change through the ballot.
Professor, let me ask you then, because you said the Wazés, the legacy politicians, won't allow these young folks to just come and do things differently overnight.
Yes.
So are we saying that, you know, Winnie Odinga, kina nani, watoke ODM, they go form their own party?
Whichever.
Or do
it's
they...
not even a party, it's a movement.
Okay.
Yeah. If you chase Sifuna,
because what you're saying is that it will not work well. They're currently in ODM.
It can't. Unless some party like DCP got it, DCP or DAP, there are all these parties around here, Jubilee, which is unlikely. But if one of them could see the moment quickly and make itself a party of young people.
Yes.
I heard Gachagua say he would want the DCP to do what Luos are doing. The Luos are taking educated people to parliament, lawyers, engineers. So what he didn't add, and I think I reminded him, was to make it young people.
Okay.
A party deliberately say we want this percentage of young people in our party, that we want to have 60% of our MCA candidates people below 35. It's a policy of the party, and you implement it. But you see, that will be on paper. The one I'm talking about of kina Babu and kina Sifuna, inakuja na msisimko. This new excitement, the wave, it has to be a wave that brings the young people on board and they see themselves are running their country, taking charge. That one can work. And so, that is what I see.
So this fight they have within ODM is in futility, basically.
Yeah, it is. Those are normal things, but it could give birth to something bigger than Ruto and Oburu Odinga think. So,
two questions. One question. What will happen if, and what does it mean for their political future, for the political future of ODM, sorry, if this, they've been called rebels, but Siti anakatange ojina.
Yes.
But let me use it for this conversation. What happens if these rebels actually leave? What does it mean for the future of ODM as a party?
It depends on how they live. You see, if they are accommodated, if these guys fear to remove Sifuna and the rest, then Kina Sifuna also get the comfort of remaining. And then ODM remains a legacy party, playing legacy politician. So you are young, you are Sifuna, you are young, you are Babu, but there's no difference between you and Oburu Odinga. You're just, so the party continues in the same way it has been. It won't even admit of young people.
Yeah.
You get. But if they are forced out, that's how change happens. If they are forced out, is a new development that renders ODM irrelevant. You can call it ODM, you can say it is weak, you can say it is dead, but you can say it's a Luo party, but it is put in the dustbin of history. It's no longer part of Kenyan history. It goes away, never to revive.
So becomes a fossil.
I would prefer a situation where there is this painful birth. ODM actually is the one that can change this country. Let them touch Sifuna and Babu and the rest. And that will be the beginning of a new order. It will create. Because comfort cannot bring change. If Kina Oburu and Kina William Ruto realize that chasing Sifuna out of the party will cause havoc, then Kina Sifuna they also, we have survived.
Yes.
God is great. They sit down and enjoy and relax. ODM will remain a strong party,
Yes.
strong the way you want to call it,
In quotes.
but it will remain just like any other party.
So the best option for them is to watoke.
The best option, not for them, for the country.
For the country,
Yes.
ni watoke.
Watoke.
Na wangoje
Wafukuzwe.
wasijitoe. Wangoje
Wafukuzwe.
wakuwe kicked out.
Yani ujinga, watu wafanye ujinga. Wacha tutumie hiyo Kiswahili. Wacha watu wafanye ujinga. Ujinga
So now
kusukuma nje.
Now I understand why Sifuna and the team have been going around the country and he's been saying mimi ndio Sifuna na mimi ndio katibu mkuu wa chama.
Yes. So you see, once you remove them, what remains is not ODM. There will be such a big wave after they leave that when you talk of ODM, people will soon be asking, what is that? Oh, it was a party. Raila.
It can't be that bad.
I'm telling you. But there have been independence cities here.
Yeah.
Where are independence parties in Africa? Where is Kano? Where are those others? The Malawi one has come back to power at some point. Yeah.
Wakifanya hivyo, Professor, if they do that, now what does it now mean for the opposition? Because they will have come with a very, like you're calling it, with that wave. So
believe me, if Kina Sifuna were pushed out,
yes,
and they go the way I'm seeing they can go, you know, the challenge is limited resources. If they go the way they went, if you saw Busia, and I was in the village, I saw what is happening down. You know, people, these politicians don't like being told. Me, actually, I came from home yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. What I saw and what there is in most parts of this country, the yearning for change and for youthful leadership. If they do that, just as ODM will be rendered irrelevant, so will the so-called royal opposition. Loyal opposition, I don't know how they call themselves.
I think United.
I'm telling you, they will be irrelevant. They will join these people.
It is the opposition to join them,
Yes.
not the other way around.
No. This can be a very big force. If it is, you know, the problem with the politics, it has become almost transactional. Politics is something you can't do without resources. So the limitation of resources, you know, even just going like to a ride like Busia, where they went,
Yes.
it requires money from these young people. They may not have it. But you see, as often happens,
Wait. Who has the money here? The young thugs or the old folks?
the old folks have money.
Okay.
The young thugs don't have money. And it costs money even just to do a rally.
It does, yes.
You are not going to give anybody money. But even you are just traveling yourself, you know, you are reorganizing your life and your
It's
things.
called logistics.
Yeah, logistics. Yeah, that's the word. That is your life.
So you're saying that if akina Sifuna were to do that thing we said they would do, wakifukuzwa ile ujinga ifanyike, they will quickly render the likes of Kalonzo
irrelevant. They are the ones who will look for them. They could be kind enough to allow them to carry the flag.
Yes.
But you see, if this thing catches up, and someone like Sifuna and the Babu are working together, and one of them is going for the presidency, you can't stop it. You can't stop it. And I'm telling legacy politicians, I'm telling Kalonzo, I'm not telling Ruto alone. I'm telling Ruto, I'm
And
telling
Kalonzo.
Kalonzo, I'm telling Gachagua. This
But
thing
Yangi.
is fire. Once it catches fire, you can't stop it. You can't put it off.
Do they though have the number one national appeal?
A lot of it.
These two folks that you've mentioned, and also, I mean, that entire faction of ODM called now Linda Nche, I think. Linda Wananchi.
Mimi ni Sifuna, akisema mimi ni Sifuna, kila mtu anasikiza.
Naam.
Babu, Owino, watu wanamsikiza.
Naam.
Any of these people can offer very alternative leadership that
But in terms of national appeal, would they appeal to would they appeal to a large crowd in Turkana, for example? Would they have a similar appeal in a place like the northeastern region?
Actually, they would.
a lot of it, because
Surprisingly.
it's a demography they are going for. You see, when this thing happens the way we are City Muganda are saying it could happen,
Yes.
you shift the demographic arrangement of the country,
Yes.
so that we are not organizing a long tribe. A new demography comes in of young men and women who realize playing this politics their fathers and mothers have been playing will never change this country.
Okay.
It will never guarantee them a future. It will never give them jobs. Don't think these people are so stupid. They can see that if they continue with business as usual, they will not get jobs. They will join their fathers in misery and poverty. And I don't think they are very prepared. And therefore, people like Babu Owino have a serious constituents waiting for them outside there. But mobilizing, like I've said, requires resources. But this is now the challenge. It has happened over years, including Marx, with Frederick Engels sponsoring. He would not have managed to do what he was doing. There are people inside here and outside this country, who could step in and sponsor these young people. For whatever reason, again.
You've actually got in the heart of the matter, but let me localize it.
Yes.
The thing that characterizes our politics is how either politicians of immense means or business people aligned to politicians of immense means influence people like Babu and Sifuna.
Yes.
Because there are people who can see the potential, and it is not hard to see. This is not potential that is difficult to see. The clamor for change is being represented by these two individuals and the stand that they are making. But this now is the trepidation that I have. Given what I've seen over time, there will be people who are players in the political field. They may not necessarily be overt politicians who will want to influence these individuals.
That's normal.
And I'm asking myself the question, how immune are they to that influence? Because it starts as influence and it ends as capture.
It happens, and it won't be the first in history. It has happened. We can even be practical and demonstrating it right now. We can say people like you say have seen the potential the Babus and the Sifunas have, but they also know their limitations, not just in terms of resources, in terms of capacity even for leadership itself, in terms of, can you take over as President Babu tomorrow? Governor may be president. That's a bit
tricky.
Yeah, when Winnie was asked whether she could take over ODM, she said, well, not quite ready. You know, she was that honest, that TV interview.
Yes.
And people like Sifuna, people like Babu, could be that realistic and say, okay, the complexities of running a nation are such that we still need a few more lessons in life, to mature kidogo. Although they can do it, I have no doubt. If I had Sifuna as the president, I wouldn't bother. I know they run the country. But I'm saying those are possibilities, the doubts and what have you. And then when somebody has supported them, that somebody can direct them towards a candidate. To be more practical, it is quite possible for some billionaires to support the Sifunas. And once these people have a big following, direct that following to support somebody like Matiang'i. And that's how Matiang'i can pull the rug from under the feet of Manyora and Kalonzo. Seated among themselves, Kalonzo would be the automatic candidate. Because the man with the most influence is Gachagua. And Gachagua will most certainly support Kalonzo. You get it?
I'm listening.
But somebody somewhere with resources can shift that decision making elsewhere. By empowering the Sifuna so much, they are the ones with a voice. Either they are taking directly, which I've said may not be the case, or they are throwing their weight behind somebody like Matiang'i. So Manyora remains there with his Kalonzo, yawning.
Let's put this into let's entertain this thought further.
Yes.
Why would anyone be interested in any other person other than Kalonzo, for example, who the United Opposition seems to be already propping up to be their flag bearer?
One thing about politics is it has people to whom politics is business, and these people are patient. They are not instant coffee kind of people. The people who move politics of a country, any country, and they see far. So when some young man comes up, or some crazy man comes up, or some funny guy comes up and becomes president, you think he has maneuvered. No, he's just fitting into a pattern. I can demonstrate this.
Okay.
Many people think Kibaki beat Kanu, but that is hardly the truth. He was just fitting into a scheme. The scheme was Moi to rule long enough for Uhuru to be president. When Uhuru was becoming of age, he wasn't quite ready for a number of factors.
Okay.
Age is still one of them, and
Experience.
and youthful behavior is another one. You know, even George Bush II, the younger one,
Yes.
was pushed from some sorts of life to become president. So, he haven't quite followed well. So when it was time for Moi to leave, because multipartyism, the changes, cut short the plan. Moi could not stay in power longer, and Uhuru wasn't ready. You bring in Kibaki. So some people get excited thinking Kibaki really was such a marvelous guy, and he was able to beat which can did he beat?
I thought it was Kibaki Tosha.
No, even people like Obama. It's not that they are so. You think you can speak your English into White House. You can find your way into White House by speaking English like Obama. No, it's a question of people are questioning Americans. You are saying you are the world's leading democracy, where human rights reside, where all the good things and liberty and everything reside. Useless countries have produced women prime ministers. Countries at war like Israel have produced prime ministers. Religious places like Bangladesh, where countries that you would think are traditional and conservative, India produce women. You have not done anything. Black men in Africa, in America, are still being second-class citizens. So you catapult, you change, you bring a black man, and you solve that equation of woman, of race, and quack. Anatoka na maisha naendelea kama kawaida. Sometimes things don't happen that way. So what I'm trying to say is, to answer your question, there are always people who design these things.
So there's an agenda to every person in power.
This is a design. You can come in as a stopgap, and you think you've made it. You can be William Ruto, you think you are a genius, and that's why you beat Uhuru. But they could also calculate and say, the way the country is going, if we don't allow this man to be president, there could be chaos in the country, because everybody seems to think he's what God sent to Kenya. Then they will also, the way they put you again, they remove you quietly and put you to sit somewhere else. They can allow you at 10 years. They can do 5 years. There are people in any country. That's what they call deep state. And people confuse deep state with president. No. President is being manipulated in the same. Look at America, for example. When people thought Carter was too weak to be an American president.
Jimmy Carter.
Yeah. They couldn't believe. Americans are used to tough people. Jimmy Carter was embarrassing Americans. And the deep state said, this can't be an American president. So they manufactured the fiasco in Tehran, in Iran. You see? And he came out looking so badly that Reagan had taken over the country. So the deep state is not always the president. He may be part of it. Most times he's not part of it. So those are the people then who can be playing these things behind the scene.
Okay.
Organizing, saying, if this thing go like this, Ruto will go back. Okay? If these things go like this, Kalonzo could take, and that's not the person we want. If things go like this, Raila would take. And if Raila takes, the club now, the ownership of the club will change forever. You see, in order for this club to remain ours, let us not give it to somebody who is strong enough to start a new club of his own, rendering all of us irrelevant. So you put Kamutu pale kanashikilia, hakana power, hakana base. These things happen all the time. You could also decide, if you want somebody to be president, if you are Uhuru Kenyatta,
yes,
you want somebody in the family to take over. You say, hii kitu kiendelea vile inaendelea hivi, hapa iko shida. Kalonzo wakichukua, sinajua Gachagua sasa atakuwa powerful. After Kalonzo itakuwa Gachagua. We are finished in Mount Kenya. So wacha Ruto arudi. Matiang'i achukue 32. By 37 ngina ama ile kijana Uhuru Kenyatta. This is how these people play this game. It happens across the world. It's not Kenya.
Prof here
watches the same movies I watch.
They are movies, yeah.
Actually, the two of you, I'm listening quietly because I'm thinking, my goodness, my friend Herman is a conspiracy theorist. A die-hard conspiracy theorist. But you know, the thing about conspiracy theory sometimes, it's very logical. If you look at the example of, say, for instance, Kenya, and you started with Jomo Kenyatta 1,
Yes.
The truth of the matter is, there are people who owed Jomo a lot. Kibaki was one of those people who could argue owed. Moi could be argued really owed Jomo, because Jomo stuck with him despite people from his own little kitchen cabinet who did not want.
They didn't know the game.
Yes.
Not that they didn't want, they didn't know the game.
So how do you ensure that you repay the kindness? Remember, Uhuru lost an election twice in his backyard. He was beaten twice, but every time he was nominated. That is what you would call, we're discussing conspiracy theory here.
Okay.
You introduce someone to the public. The presidential election that Uhuru lost introduced him to the whole country.
Yes.
The whole country. We now knew who Uhuru Kenyatta was. Okay? And what also followed,
His appointment to cabinet, or?
oh yes, and the plum position was given. But this man was Minister for Finance. He had been introduced, now he was being introduced to the system of
And
government.
if people didn't know, the coalition government was Mukate.
Yes.
How Mother Karua was not made the deputy prime minister. She would have already told people there's something going on here. How was Uhuru given deputy prime minister instead of Mother Karua? It was obvious it was Mother Karua. Why was she not given? This is always a game. And if you want to understand the politics of a country, you must see it from a game point of view. If you don't see it as a game point of view, then you are.
But Prof, there's always what we call the disruptors of that game.
Yeah. Sometimes the trumps of this country
Yes,
come up.
the thing that you didn't anticipate, and that's where the role of chance comes in. This wasn't anticipated, but here it is, and it's influencing the play.
But they catch up quickly with you. They quickly
They
take
do.
charge.
You see,
After that.
like now, the change we see in our country is the passing away of Raila.
Yes.
That caught very many people off guard, and it has changed very many things for very many people.
Yes.
Just that passing of Raila.
Yes.
That one thing.
Yes.
So a lot of what you're seeing is people scrambling to figure out.
Yes.
Now that this influence that we could be assured of is not there, what do we do?
What do we do? Yeah.
Now that's what you're seeing. The what do we do?
And the master themselves are just watching. Them, they are not panicking. Nothing scares those masters.
Yes.
They are long term in their thinking. They are never in a hurry. They can see what is happening from far.
Yeah.
Do not play with people like Uhuru Kenyatta. These are the real owners
Of Kenya.
Yes. Nyinyi munakimbia na siasa wanacheka tu. These are the club owners. They see far.
Actually, let me explain.
And their interest is not their interest. Their interest is the interest of global powers
People who see far,
in business and in politics.
see far,
Yes.
because they have people who help them see far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, there are people whom you will never see, you will never know. Call it a think tank, but these are people who will tell you this will go here and it's right there, and if you do this, this will happen.
Yeah.
When you find a politician making very clever moves, thank him for being clever enough to have people who can actually guide him and tell him, no, this we don't do. This is what this is where we move. And as I said, you will never get to know some of those people.
Yeah.
And that reminds me something, CT, with your permission.
Please.
I keep telling people Raila was superhuman. Raila was a spirit. You know, people didn't understand me.
You know Raila was your friend.
Raila was my friend, I know. But friendship aside, you must give Raila credit. Raila was playing against these people.
Yes, he was.
Let me use a very simple example.
This very system you're talking about.
Yes. And he was able to get where he got. Give Raila credit. Let me give you this example. Here is handshake. It has happened. The handshake has happened on the 9th of March. And quickly, Raila realizes with his people, they will need some team of people to help them. You as truly.
Being one of them.
Was one of them. So we form a think tank.
Yes.
Of course, as usual with Raila, you don't go far with him. You tell him this and next time he say, but that's hardly the point. The point is this. I raised this issue. I said, look here. I don't know what I was telling Raila alone or the team. I can't remember. I think the team.
Yes.
I said, I am more than convinced You, Raila, there are things you can't. Yeah, it was a team. There are things you can't tell us, and we don't want to force you to tell us. Including whether there will be a coalition government with Uhuru sooner or later, including whether he will support you in 2022. Don't tell us. There are things I know you can't share with us, and we will not push you. But let me tell you this. The other side, Uhuru Kenyatta, has a fully fledged team, well-resourced team to manage his politics in this coalition. You see the imbalance.
Yes.
It also played out in the election of 2013. How well organized and oiled the Jubilee campaign was, and even in 2017. You saw it in the petition, the first Raila one in 2013. When Raila is overworking Oraro, an old man running out of sugar, as he would tell us during the hearing of the petition, the presidential petition, helped by my friend senior, who was recently made senior Chikanzo Ocheng, James Ocheng. How many lawyers were working for Jubilee in that petition? I understand they had hired a whole hotel. You saw how they came up with their documentation. So, you must give Raila credit that he was able to go against an established machinery of well-oiled, with experts, with the advisors you are talking about, with the financiers and everything in place, and still emerge the victor. Raila was not a human being. This guy was super. Yeah, he was super. And these guys would start with a tribal base of millions of votes. You know, needing only one, then you add on, for example, from Rift Valley. And Raila is picking across the country, mpaka and assemble sufficient votes to challenge these guys. You must give Raila credit. But that's how politics works.
Yes.
Like C.T. Muga is saying, there are always people making very smart moves, but it is played in a very smart way by experts, by people who know things. There are people in this country, some of them I know. I wouldn't mention them on air. Sometimes because of confidentiality issues and what have you, and some of them I just know, they even don't know.
Yeah.
There are people who understand the politics of this country. People who have put Kibaki to power, put Uhuru to power. People who have played politics in this country, trying to manage Raila, for example, successfully, in whichever way they have been doing it. Most of them, people don't know them.
Professor, if the late Raila Odinga, had he been alive today, would we be seeing Sifuna and company doing what they're doing currently?
No.
To the level that they're doing it?
Not quite. I don't want to be like people who say, oh, Raila was my friend, Raila told me this. I have never wanted. There are things, of course, Raila told me, but I wouldn't want to share them in public. I doubt for two reasons. Raila was a person who understood public opinion, and he cared what the public thought and felt so much. And I said this many times. Raila would not have gone into excesses, even in support for Ruto. As to whether Raila, the only thing that could make Sifuna part ways with Raila, and that one I have it on authority, and Sifuna has said it himself, if ODM chose to support Ruto for 2027, Sifuna would not. Now the question is,
with or without Raila?
It would have been with Raila, of course.
No, for Sifuna, he wouldn't have supported ODM if Raila had been part of the bandwagon that is supporting.
Doing what Oburu and Juneta are doing now.
Yes.
Sifuna would have. Would we have reached there? I doubt. Okay. Why? One, Raila would not have supported Ruto, even if he supported him, not in the manner in which Oburu are doing.
Okay.
But the most likely thing is that Raila would not have reached that would not have gone that far. No. He would not have gone that far. I have this, I'm not saying he told me, because that would be stupid. But adding 1 and 1, 2 and 2 I don't know, CT Muga, what do you think? Me, when I add 2 and 2, I don't see Raila going that far.
You know the thing that I
don't think he could have gone that far.
What
Because that would have meant Raila ends his political career not being Raila.
Not being at the top.
Not really.
Not at the top, not being Raila. There are certain things Raila wouldn't bring himself to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things is necessarily going against public opinion.
Yes.
You know, the evolution of the gentleman Raila is what I find fascinating, because it represents the evolutionary process of this country. The things that we talk about, the handshakes that we talk about, the 2010 constitution, you know, these things have actually entered scholarly discourse, because it is looked at as what happened, what it brought about, and what it averted. And it is unique. Following a path that is criticized as a handshake, and then the question of the alternative that was apparent in the absence of that particular handshake. For one person to represent all these changing tunes to the point where the focus seems to be, is it possible to bring about the changes that we desire without necessarily being the president? And actually, Raila represented that. Bringing about change without necessarily having ever sat on that seat and be the president of a country. And why it is something that has been afforded study is for a very simple reason. It's unique.
Unique.
It's very, very unique. But it tells you something about what my good friend the professor is talking about. How that man's thinking, understanding, his analytical processes were.
Yeah.
The worst thing Raila would have done in the public, if he wanted to support Ruto in 2017, he could not have done what Ken Oburu are doing. The worst that he could have done.
Yes.
Either to run himself, and that kind of arrangement would then give Ruto perhaps a head start. They would agree with Ruto, you run, to disorganize opposition. That he could do if he really wanted to support Ruto. That's the worst he could do. Alternatively, he could leave Ruto in quotes and back a weak candidate and give him token support and give Ruto a through pass. That is possible. But Raila cared so much what people thought and felt. I'm not seeing Raila telling the people of this country. And the worst thing that would happen, and Raila would not have allowed that, it would have isolated the Luos.
Prof, umesema weak candidate. Give me an example of a weak candidate.
Yo mtego mazee usiingie.
City Muga.
Yeah, bas. Perfect. Perfect. Perfect.
What a good place to end.
Nilikuwa nataka kujua example ya weak candidate. Let me just read the nini here before we leave. Kuna mtu alikuwa amesema something about oranges here.
Yes.
That message imepotea under a ton of others. But anyway, it was to the effect of if Sifuna leaves ODM, he will leave with the juice and the pulp and leave ODM with just the peel. Leave Oburu rather with just the peel.
Correct.
But how true is that though? I mean, you've said there will be a significant impact, but is it really that bad?
Very bad. There will be nothing left of the orange.
Remember, he has said if he is pushed out, not if he leaves.
If he leaves, it won't go.
No
far.
impact.
Yeah, no.
No. If he is pushed out, and it is clear that this man has been pushed out. Yes.
It will be very bad for them.
Yeah.
If it's pushed out. And you see, like I've said, an entire community will be it will be playing a whole community against the entire country. And this must be told to Oburu Odinga. Me, I give free advice because I love this country and I love my Luo brothers because I'm also a Luo. The Luos will be isolated. I've seen already, because there's a sizable number of people from Luo Nyanza who agree with the broad-based.
Yes.
And there are people who are saying, no, that's nonsense. They are the bigger chunk of the Luo Nyanza support broad-based. And they are likely to do very bad things within Nairobi here You see, like if you saw the president was somewhere and there was a crowd, people are saying it was manufactured. No, not necessarily.
Yes.
Yeah. So you are isolating a whole community, and a community associated with the struggle for good governance, for good politics, for democracy,
yes,
for human rights, and a community that has paid dearly, more than any other community. In post-independence Kenya, no community has paid even half the price the Luos have paid to make Kenya get where they are. Now that community should not be played against the rest of the country, and that is that's the danger that brings.
Okay.
And I have been a champion of saying this, that I have no problem with anybody supporting anybody, including ODM supporting William Ruto. But it must be done in style.
Okay.
So that we don't play community against community, Kenyan against Kenyan. It must be played in a way that it is a well thought out process. I don't know the city because he comes from there, or whether he agrees or disagrees.
Oh no. You have an extremely valid point, because moving from the champions of everything that is positive within a democracy to being a pariah, it requires just one little thing, and you suddenly find yourself in that position. Because if ODM becomes a tribal party, it's dead and buried, finished, done, dusted.
As of
They
today,
will used to fight some stupid street wars in Nairobi, and forever the rest of the country will never respect them. It will be very sad.
As of today, 10th February 2026,
Yes.
what are the chances of President Ruto being president beyond 2027? From your perspective, of course.
That's a very difficult question. You should say, if elections were held today, for example,
Okay.
certainly he would lose, and lose badly. Between now and 2027 is the dynamics we have been talking about this morning. Dynamics. They could favor him. You see, if Sifuna comes up with a third force,
Yes.
so there's Kinakalonzo and there's Sifuna and then there's Ruto. If this third force of Sifuna doesn't excite in a manner I said, but it brings numbers on board, it's into the opposition numbers. People would have voted for Kalonzo now choose to vote for a Sifuna candidate,
Yes.
whether Sifuna himself or somebody. Bila ile msisimuko. Then Ruto will go back.
Aye.
It's quite possible. And that's how politics could be played. Remember. It could also be deliberate.
Thank you so much, Professor Herman Manyora. That is where we come to a close as far as this conversation is concerned. Na Professor, usitoroke sana. Usijifiche sana.
Niko na wewe sana.
Na
ukiniita hata kesho jioni nitakuja.
Utakuja.
Wacha asubuhi hata jioni nitakuja.
Friday jioni utakuwa wapi?
Jioni, sasa si jioni, sasa it's Friday, tunajua tu tunatembea mitaani.
Aya, sawa.
Karibu sana.